This evening, well, I'm Denise Lewis. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the deputy head at Northmead, but I also am our reading lead, which is why I'm running this evening. I've got Miss Ramsey with me as well, because she is my technical assistant, because I don't like doing all this admitting of people when I'm trying to think about what I'm saying at the same time. So hopefully she can do all that for me, and we can get going. So I will share my screen, and then hopefully we can start. Okay, so this evening, this is my very brief plan as to what I'd like to get talk about. Really, I'm going to do a very brief kind of overview of our accelerated reader system. For those of you who have got children higher up in the school, you're probably fairly au fait with that. For those people with children just entering year 3, that's quite a new thing for you. And then the second thing I want to talk about is how really you can read with your child to develop comprehension. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what we would call active reading, and then VIPers, and that will become clearer as we speak. So accelerated reader it's got 2 parts to it. It's got what we call the star reader, which is used for assessment, and then accelerated reader, which is basically just a database of quizzes. So we'll look at each of these things in turn. Maybe. Okay, so it's the star reader. At the beginning of the year, and then at regular intervals across the year, your child will take what's called a star reader test. It's done on the computer, and it's an adaptive test. So as your child takes the first question, as they answer the first question, if they get that right, then the computer will give them a question that is slightly more difficult. If they get it wrong, then they will be asked a slightly easier question. So the test that your child will take will possibly be slightly different to any other child in the class, and it's so it is adjusted to their ability. The first 10 questions in the test are fill the gap sort of questions. So the children have to read the sentence, they have to pick the best word to fill the gap. So to answer this sort of question, you've got to be able to extract meaning from that sentence, but you've also need a really good knowledge of vocabulary, but vocabulary basically within the context of a sentence. If you want to help your child get better at taking these star reader tests, then obviously you can do this sort of a question with your child at home. You can just make up questions, make up a sentence, and then take out a word and see if they would know which of the words you offer them would be most suitable. The next questions, they get another 24 questions, which are a little bit more tricky. Basically, they have to read a paragraph of text and then answer questions about it. So in order to do this, the children have got to decode the words in the passage. They've got to understand the words. But the other thing is they've actually got to understand the question as well and decipher what the question is asking them. Now, in infant schools, children are often questioned by their teacher or their TA about their reading. And then, of course, if the children don't understand the question, then the teacher would rephrase it and guide them to be able to answer the question correctly. So the star reader test is quite a sea change from that, because they are doing all of that working out for themselves at the computer. So it requires a much more complex understanding of the text that they're reading. Children are told this when they take their reading test, that there is a time limit, that if they can't answer it, then they shouldn't guess. They should just let the time run out and they should wait for the next question. for some children, the time limit makes it virtually impossible. For those children who've got a processing difficulty, then we do remove the time limit. So if your child attends the Coin Centre, then certainly that they will have that time limit taken away. Once your child has taken their Star Reader test, then the teachers get something that looks a bit like this, and it's a printout of their report. Now, I won't talk about the whole report, but I'll just point out a few key parts. If you look at the coloured bands at the top, so these are two separate reports of two separate children. Really, we'd like the children to have a report like the one on the right, because that child, they are scoring where they're above the benchmark, basically. The child on the left, you can see on that coloured band, then where they have scored, we would be looking at them and thinking, oh, we need to do a bit more practice on their comprehension scores and give them a little bit of an intervention. The other bits that are quite interesting on the report are the reading age. So the reading age, if you think about your child, if their reading age is the same as their actual age, then that's right. If their reading age is slightly below, then that's probably okay as well. But if it is significantly lower, then that's when we need to think about putting in interventions in school to help them catch up with their reading. Obviously, you can have a child who is way beyond their chronological age with their reading, and they are reading really, really well. The person I would say on the right is doing exceptionally well with their reading there. The other bit that teachers look at is down the bottom, which is called the ZPD. Now, this basically is the range of book levels that will challenge a child without causing them frustration, and your child will receive this ZPD range after taking these tests. Now, it's the biggest criticism that we hear from parents, that the books that they've been given are too easy. Normally, that's because the child is reading well and they've got good decoding skills, but they are not so proficient at the comprehension, and that has brought down this ZPD score. So from the ZPD, those then relate to the reading levels, the reading bands, basically. So your class teacher, your child's class teacher will then give your child a coloured band from which to read, from which to choose their books. It might be that some children might read from more than one coloured band if we think that's appropriate. Yeah, go on to the next one. On the inside of the front cover, you'll see that inside their books, so the coloured band is on the outside, but on the inside, there's what's called the book level. That's the ZPD of that book. So if your child is reading something like a pink level book, there's a band of difficulty within that pink range. So you could encourage your child to bring home one that was at the more advanced end of pink. So rather than reading a 2.0, you could say, oh, have a look in the front cover and see if you can find a 2.9. If you felt that that was something to try and stretch them a little bit further within their coloured band. The level of the books, the ZPDs, are determined basically by the sort of sentence structure difficulty and the vocabulary that they will find in the book. On this sticker as well, the other bit that's quite interesting is the interest level. This is important because it does sort of hint at the kind of content that might be in the book. So this one here has got an MY, so that's suitable for what we call middle years. So that's for ages 9 to 13. Some of our books would obviously be for lower years, which would be for children who are 5 to 8. We've got a very few books in the library which are upper years. Those are really for children who are at secondary school. I would avoid those unless you've got a particularly mature year 6 child, because basically those sorts of books might have content that you don't feel is suitable for a junior school child. So all our books are found in the library. All our reading books are in the library. Children can go and find their coloured section, but obviously they've got opportunity to read other reading material as well. We say to the children, once they've reached purple level, that actually they can read anything from purple upwards, or below, to be honest, if they want to. And we say that for a couple of reasons. Lots of the new releases of books tend to come out within that purple and light blue range. And so if children are told they're on a band above that, say red or gold, they don't like to then read a book lower than their band, and then they miss out on all these really good new books. Also, we've found that a series of books can draw on colours. You know, they might go from purple, green, blue across a series. And if we restrict the children just to one colour level, sometimes they wouldn't be able to read a series of books in the right order. For example, you can't read Harry Potter in the right order if you just stick to one coloured band. The library, well, it's open now, which is great because we've had a year of not being able to use the library, which has been awful. And the children are free to visit the library. They can come in first thing in the morning before they go to their classes at school. It's open most lunch times, but the children will also have one lesson timetabled a week where they can go and choose their books. We encourage the children to take responsibility for changing their own books. We don't choose books for them. And I think that element of choice is good because it gives them ownership over what they're reading. Currently, most of our fiction books are colour banded, and I'm gradually labelling up the non-fiction as well, because I know for some children non-fiction it is a much preferable read for them. So I'm gradually getting through those as well. When your child finishes a book, they take a short quiz on the computer about what they've read. And this is the accelerated reader part. The quiz is found on the inside front cover of their book. The number is there. And what they do is they log onto a computer, they enter that quiz number, and then the computer will ask them a series of questions. And it ranges from about, smallest is 5 questions up to 20 questions. It really depends on the length and the complexity of the book. And passing these tests is a measure and an indication that they've actually understood what they've been reading. In most cases, I would say the children enjoy taking the quizzes, and as they're reading books that are of their interest level and something they enjoy reading, then they are more likely to be successful on these quizzes. And I think that then encourages them to read more. You can visit this website called AR Bookfinder, which is quite useful because if you're thinking about getting your children some books, you can look up whether they are of the book level that your child would be reading. If you're going to the library, you've gone to the library in town and you want to see if they can do a quiz on the book when they come into school, then you can look up quiz numbers on this website as well, which is quite useful. So once the children complete a quiz on the computer calculates how many words were in that book, and it adds it to your child's individual word count. Some children love this kind of slightly competitive aspect, and they want to increase their word count. I know the children in my Year 6 class are absolutely determined to become word millionaires, because they want to show that they've independently read over 1 million words. I think they're doing it because you get that nice gold badge if you become a word millionaire, and you get a bit of glory. But the good thing is, it is making them read, an awful lot of books, which is great. As well as accumulating an individual word count score, we also record on a display in the library how many words each class has read. Obviously, for the younger children, reading 1 million words is quite hard. You'd have to read an awful lot of Biff and Chip.
Try.
if you're going to try and get to 1 million words. But they are contributing to their class total, which is good. And we talk about it in assembly. And also, the other thing we allow the children to do is to take quizzes on the books that we read to them at school. And we read to children an awful lot. We're reading every day, and children are exposed to a large amount of reading material. So they can also take quizzes on those books. And for every quiz that they take, the children receive a raffle ticket, and then those raffle tickets are entered into a prize draw at the end of term. So the more quizzes you take, the more likelihood there is of you winning a prize. So children at Northmead are exposed to a great deal of different reading opportunities. I mean, reading is, in my opinion, the most important skill that we teach our children. If we don't teach them to be a proficient reader by the time they leave us, really, I feel we have failed them somewhat, because without being able to read, their academic success is limited. But you also need to be able to read for all aspects of, well, not just education, but life. But more than that, we really do hope that we teach them the joy of reading as well, so that they can really develop a love of it. There's quite a lot of research that children who read for pleasure do significantly better than their peers in all aspects of life, not just academic performance. I'm in the library every morning, and I have a lot of conversations with children. They do chat about, what they're reading, have you tried this, or I really like this, or this wasn't any good. And, sharing books with your children really is a real pleasure. So we're going to think about now the fact that to become a real reader, we need to be teaching both the word reading and the comprehension, as well as engendering that sort of love of reading. So reading is a really complex skill. I quite like this little visual, because it shows, all the different strands of reading. So down the bottom, you've got, what we think of as being able to read. You've got to be able to recognise the words. So that is being able to recognise them by sight. If you don't recognise them by sight, you've got to be able to decode them. To be able to do that, you need some awareness of the sounds, phonological awareness. So you've got that strand going in. The thing that we'll talk about more is the fact that the children need this comprehension of language as well to be able to be a skilled reader. And there's a larger amount of strands that go into making up that side of the sort of rope of reading, really. So at Northmead, we're going to talk about the fact that we really got to teach reading for comprehension. You can see from what I said about the accelerated reader, the star reader tests and the quizzes, they require your child to really understand what they've read. So at Northmead, we encourage children to be what I'd call an active reader, to constantly think while they're reading. So this is, I've put a little visual there because I kind of think this is what you do at the moment of reading on the surface. And then we use something called Vipers, which I'll talk about in a minute, which helps children to kind of dive deeper into their reading and really fully understand it. So active reading is what children are encouraged to do at the moment of reading. So when they're reading, when they've picked up their book and there is something on that page. If a child reads passively, which is the opposite of active reading, they'll read the words on the page and they'll be able to decode them and they'll be fluent. And they might even seem like they're a really good reader. But if they're passive, it means they're not thinking about their reading, they're just reading aloud. I expect we've all had that sort of moment where the kind of experience where you've read a whole page of a book or a whole page of a newspaper and you get to the bottom of it and you've got no idea what you've just read. You were distracted by other things like you're thinking about what you should be making for tea, that problem you've got at work, all those sorts of things. So you were a passive reader, you read it all, but you weren't thinking about it. And many children just do that. They might be reading quite well, they're recognizing those words by sight, but they're not connecting with the reading. And they don't stop to explore the words that they perhaps don't quite understand. They might miss out on the humor of a book. So they're not thinking ahead as to what might happen. And they're certainly not kind of painting that picture in their head about what's going on in the text. So we do try and teach the children to be active readers. So as they read the words, that they've actually got thought processes going through their brains. And as adults, we really need to model what's going on inside our brains as we read, because children don't know this is what you do as a reader unless we teach them it. So we talk through and we model ideas that might pop into our heads as we read. So if I was, for example, reading a story about a seaside, I might say, oh, the seaside, oh, I once went to the seaside, oh, it reminds me of going there last summer, oh, it was really sunny, there were rock pools, oh, my feet got all sandy, oh, I remember that I had an ice cream whilst I was sat on the beach. So I'm telling the children what I'm thinking and I'm just kind of making explicit how I connect things in the text, the things that I might already know about. If I'm reading a story and there's the awful glowing door or something like that, I might say to the children, oh, I wonder why that door's glowing. I wonder what might happen if we touch it. So I'm actively questioning and trying to engage with the text. It's those I wonder if or I wonder what sort of questions. Another skill that we try and encourage the children to do is the idea of inference. So it's a really tricky skill to do as a reader. And basically it means you're looking for clues, you're kind of reading between the lines. So, you know, if I read a sentence that said something about, oh, the girl was frozen to the spot, her eyes were wide, then I might kind of ponder out loud with the children, oh, I think that sentence might be suggesting that, you know, she's scared. We often freeze if we're scared. It doesn't say that she's scared in the text, but I think I'm deducing that from her actions, from what her body's doing. So it's just looking for the clues. but it's helpful to children if we kind of model that and we think out loud. And the key really as well is that children kind of paint a picture in their head of what's actually going on as they read the story. And sometimes we do get the children to actually draw pictures. So it might be that we've read a bit about a setting and they will then try and draw that, or we've read the description of the character and they can actually draw that as well, so that they are trying to engage with that text. It's quite useful to kind of predict what might happen. So, if your characters are up a mountain and you hear a rumble, oh, I wonder what that is. I wonder if that might be an avalanche coming, or I wonder if it's a monster coming over the hill. So again, that modelling of what's happening. So constantly, making links, referring back to the text, trying to get them to kind of lift what's on the page and engage with it in their brains. And then following that, the Vipers are our kind of main way that we structure our teaching of comprehension. So Vipers is an acronym, and each of the letters stands for one type of reading comprehension skill. So they're the key areas that children need to know in order to improve their reading comprehension, their understanding. They're also the areas that are covered in more formal tests. So in the Key Stage 2 SATs at the end of Year 6, they don't call them Vipers, but the people who write the SATs papers call them the reading domains, but basically they cover those areas. And lower down the school, we do testing called PIRA tests on their reading. And again, it covers these different areas as well. So we use Vipers to ensure that the children understand the text. This can be done orally, but we also expose the children to written comprehension questions, which they then need to formulate a written answer to as well. And we do that at least once a week. That would be happening. So I'm going to go through each of these very briefly as to what they're about. So vocabulary, obviously, vocabulary development in children is essential. Researchers have actually explored the sort of correlation between the amount of words, the vocabulary size that a child has at different ages and their later sort of social and cognitive development. And, if you know words, you definitely do better in life. So basically, we do a lot of explaining a vocabulary before reading a text, but then afterwards as well, we might ask them questions. So these sorts of sentence stems are quite useful, and I can make these available to parents because it's the sort of thing that you could use when you're talking to your children at home about reading. And so it's just talking really very much about the meaning of the words. But also the English language is quite difficult because some words mean different things in different contexts. So it needs to be the meaning of the words in that passage that we've just read. The next letter is an I, and that stands for inference, for inferring. And as I said, inferring is knowing, being able to read between the lines. So you have to be able to combine a knowledge of the text that you've just read, but also combine that with your own knowledge. So you've got to have some background knowledge as well. And you might infer something about the characters or about the setting or the situation in the text. The next letter is a P for predicting. There's all sorts of different ways of predicting. It might be looking at the front cover first and predicting what the story might be about. You can predict halfway through a story and say, oh, what do you think is going to happen? to this character, or what do you happen if he chose this to do, or this to do? And then at the end of a story, you can kind of predict if the author wrote a sequel, what you think that might be about. So predicting is the P. Explaining is quite a complex one. It's very much to do with explaining the kind of meaning in the text, the choice of language that is used. And these are the sorts of questions that children find more difficult. And they're the sorts of questions in a formal assessment, like a SATS paper, that are going to be worth more marks. So they might be worth, 2 or 3 marks rather than just 1. Because you have to justify your opinion by finding evidence in the text to to justify what you're saying, what your answer is. The next one is an R for retrieval. Children find this a little easier. You can only use the information that you have read. So to find a retrieval type question, you actually have to be able to put your finger on it in the text. So you're not using any general knowledge, you're not using any background knowledge, you're just trying to find it. So for children to be able to do this, they would need to be able to scan their eyes across, looking for kind of keywords and then reading around the sentence. The last one is summarising. As it says, you just summarise what the main ideas are. It might be that you summarise an entire book, you might summarise a paragraph or a couple of pages. And yeah, just basically you summarise what has been said, what is the key information in that part of the book. So having looked at all of those, I'm going to try and show you now this in action. Mrs. Backhurst has very kindly videoed herself reading with one of her children, and I thought it was quite useful to see how you can do this as an adult, how you can read and ask questions that kind of follow those vipers. But also the book that they're reading is really a very, very simple book, but you can get quite a lot out of it. So hopefully you'll be able to hear this.
Unmute and tell me if you can't.
Yes, give us a shout if you can't hear it.
Just by looking at the cover of this book, what do you think it's going to be about?
He's saving someone.
Possibly.
Or something.
Yeah, it's a good idea. What makes you think he might be saving someone?
Because he's flying.
He's flying. And is there anything else about him that makes you think he might be saving someone?
Because he's a Superman.
He's a Superman. How do you know?
Because of his cape.
He's got a cape on, hasn't he? What else has he got that might make him look like a
gloves
Superman?
and the boots.
Yeah.
And the top.
And the top. What's on his top?
The 5 and B.
Do you think it is a 5 and a B? Let's have a look. Can you look at the title of the book?
Super Ben.
Super Ben. What does the first word begin with?
So.
What does the second word begin with? Have a look at these on here.
SB.
SB. What do you think that might stand for?
Superman. Super Ben.
Brilliant. Okay. Shall we have a look inside the book? There he is again. Do you think this book's going to be interesting for you?
Yeah.
Why?
Because it's all for kids.
Okay, how do you know that?
Because it looks like a small book and it doesn't really have much page and it has small writing.
And what about the character?
It looks like a kid.
Okay. Right, let's have a look. I think it does, doesn't it? Oh, I'm going to hide these words. So who do you think this boy is here?
Ben.
It's Ben. And where's he going?
To the park.
To the park. How do you know he's going to the park?
Because it says park there.
Good boy. Are there any other clues that make you think it could be a park?
No.
Okay.
Well, yes, because there's boys running around.
Yeah. And what's he doing? He's not just running around, he's also
Pretending to be a Superman.
pretending. That's a good word, isn't it? He's pretending to be something. Let's just have a look at these pictures before we have a look at the words here. What do you think is happening in this top picture?
That he's going to do some colouring and draw the Superman
Oh, maybe. What makes you think he's going to draw Superman?
by the colouring book.
By the colouring book. That shows you he's going to draw. What about this picture?
Show him that he's thinking so
Ah.
he can see the picture in his head.
He can see it in his head. When you see a picture in your head, do you know what that's called? What are you using? You are using your
Memory.
memory and your
Brain.
and something beginning with I, Have you heard of the word imagination?
Yeah.
Yes. So he's using his imagination. Let's move on to the words then. Let's see if you can read this then. Okay.
Ben and his mum went to the park.
Ben and his mum went to the park. Well done. Would you like to turn the page over? Just turn one over. Oh, let's have a look.
Ben drew a picture.
Let's have a look carefully. Does it say drawed? Let's have a look.
Drew a picture.
Ben drew a picture. What do you think his picture is that he is drawing?
A Superman flying in the sky.
And why do you think he's drawing that picture?
Because it shows you a picture up there.
Okay, but why do you think he's doing that picture?
Because he likes drawing about Superman.
Yeah, and what is he using? He's using his...
Imagination.
Good boy, he's using his imagination. Hang on a second though. What do you think is going to happen on the next page before we turn over?
He's going to come into real life.
Do you think so? Do you think he's going to turn into a real superhero?
Yeah.
Let's carry on and see. Oh, can you read the sentence for me?
He fed the ducks.
He fed the ducks. Is he just feeding the ducks or is he doing something else at the same time?
Using his imagination.
Good boy, he is using his imagination. And what's happening?
He's fighting a shark in the sea.
Do you think he's fighting a shark in the sea or could the shark be somewhere else?
In the ocean, in the lake.
In the lake? What makes you think that? Can you find any clues in the picture?
Because there's ducks up at the top.
There are. If it was in the ocean, what might he find there instead of ducks?
Fish.
Yep. Can you see a fish in there somewhere?
Yeah, there.
Okay, so there are some fish. Are there any other different types
Ducks.
of any different? Yeah.
Frog.
And a frog, yeah. Would you find a frog in the ocean?
No.
What types of fish might you find in the ocean?
Seahorse.
Oh, you might do. Okay, very good. Right. So, what do you think might happen now? So he has. Where's he been first of all? Where was he first of all on the page before?
He was at the park.
He was at the park. And what was he doing at the park to start with?
Drawing.
He was drawing. And now he is.
Using his imagination and feeding the ducks.
Okay, so he's been drawing, feeding ducks. What do you think he might be doing next?
Actually touching him.
Touching what?
The Superman.
Who?
The boy that's dressed up in the Superman outfit.
Yeah, might be doing what?
Touching that little boy.
What's the little boy called? Do you remember?
No.
What's his name?
I
Okay.
forgot.
Can you remember the title of the book?
Ben.
So what's his name?
Ben.
Ben. Do you remember the title of the book though, the full title?
Yeah.
What is it?
Super Ben.
Super Ben. Right, let's see if you're right. Let's see what happens next. Oh,
He pulls on the roundabout.
good boy. Let's have a look at this word here. Can you use your phonics sounds?
Pull.
Pull.
Play.
Good boy. There's an A. Put the word together, blend it.
Played.
Good boy. So let's read it again.
He played on the roundabout.
Good boy. Now let's have a look at him playing on the roundabout. He's imagining something else now.
He's imagining that the super hero is saving aliens.
Yes, he is, isn't he? Look, he's doing a really good job there, isn't he? Why do you think he is imagining that he is saving these aliens when he's on a roundabout?
So the aliens could play and have fun as well.
Possibly, but there's something about a roundabout that's making him imagine that he's on a spaceship. What do you think it might be?
Running?
Oh, he is running. He is running, but is he running? How is he running?
Quickly.
Look at my finger.
Round and round.
Round and round. What's this spaceship?
Running round and going round and round.
It could be, couldn't it? Can you see the shape though? Can you see the shape of the
They're
roundabout?
the same shapes.
They are the same shape. So maybe the shape, I don't know, maybe the shape of the roundabout and going round and round is making him thinking about the spaceship. I don't know. Could be quite a good idea. So what's he done so far? He's gone to the park.
He's done some drawing. He's done some imagination.
Yeah.
He's imagination about a shark.
Good boy. He's been imagining about a shark. What was he doing when he was imagining the shark?
Feeding ducks.
Good boy. And now he is
Playing on a roundabout.
and imagining.
There's a spaceship with aliens in it.
Wow. How do you think he's feeling at being at this park?
Happy.
I should think he is, isn't he? Why is he feeling happy? What's making him feel happy?
That he's playing and also imagination.
He is. Do you think he is having fun, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, he could be having some fun. 1 minute before we turn over. How would you feel if you went to this park?
Having fun a lot.
Would you?
Yeah.
I think I would too. Do you want to turn the page over? Oh. What's he doing now?
He splashed in the puddles.
Good boy. And what's happening? Tell me what's happening in the story
He's
here.
fighting a big giant crocodile.
I think he is, isn't he? Do you think there is a
And
crocodile?
saving a mouse.
Yeah, he is. He is. Oh, looks really good fun, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Do you think in real life he could jump in one of those puddles and splash down?
Yeah.
Be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's he done so far then? He's gone to the park.
Park doing some drawing.
Yeah.
Feeding the duck.
Yeah.
And playing at the park on
Yeah.
the roundabout.
Yeah.
And now he's fighting imagination about the superhero splashing mud all over the crocodile.
I think so.
And saving.
And while he's doing that, he is,
Jumping in puddles.
yeah, he's not quite jumping. What did he do?
Splashing.
He splashed. Good boy.
In the puddles.
Let's move over then. Off we go. Whoa.
And then it was time to go home.
Time to go home. So what's he doing so that he's going home? How is he preparing to go home?
Putting his jacket on.
Yeah.
And tidying up.
And tidying up. Who's helping him?
His mum.
His mum. What's happening? Can you tell me what's happening in this
He's
picture?
pretending to be a Superman.
How? What's he doing this time?
He's imagining about him flying with the superhero.
He's imagining he's flying like a superhero. Now, I want you to tell me what he's doing that's making him think that he is being that superhero.
His imagination.
But what's he doing? Where is he?
At the park.
Yeah,
On the field.
on the field. And what is his action? What's he doing?
Flying with his arms.
Yeah, he is flying with his arms. And what's he doing with his legs?
Jumping.
Do you think he's jumping?
Flying.
He's going like this.
Running.
Running. Have you ever been running really fast?
Yeah.
Where do you think he's running? Down
Down the hill.
Down a hill, and imagined you're flying.
Yeah.
I used to do that when I was a little girl. Right, let's turn over the page. Oh, what have we got here? See if you can read.
A story map. The park. A story map. The park.
Good boy. Got some more words.
The duck.
Is it duck? Have a look
The
carefully.
ducks. The roundabout. The puddles.
Good boy. What's the map showing you?
Where he went first.
And
And what he was doing.
what he was doing. And what's he doing here?
Flying.
He is. Is he still in the park here?
Yes.
Are you sure?
No.
What's he doing?
He's flying away from the park.
Away, good boy. Where do you think he's going now then?
To go save some other creatures.
Oh, he could be, couldn't he? What do you think? What creature would you save if it was you? What would you go and
A
save?
rabbit. A tiger.
A rabbit or a tiger? What would you save them from?
Other monsters.
From another monster. Wow, that sounds good. Right, so we've come to the end of the book now. So, there he goes off to save his other rabbits or monsters. Do you know any other superheroes like them?
No.
What made you think he was a superhero then, if you don't know any other superheroes?
Imagination.
Your imagination? Do you not know of any superheroes in cartoons or in other books?
Superman.
Superman! So you do know other superheroes. Superman.
Iron Man.
Iron Man, yeah. And how have you come across Superman and Iron Man? What have
By
you seen them in?
In films.
In films. So sometimes films can relate to books, can't they?
Yeah.
So you can watch films and you can read books to learn more. Brilliant. Well done. That's fabulous. Now, one more question. Did you enjoy the book?
Yes.
Why? Can you explain why?
Because it was thinking about having fun and playing and imagination in at the same time.
Yes, you're exactly right. So it's doing lots of different things, wasn't it?
At the same time.
At the same time. So it was just a little book with some pictures in and not many words, but it gave you all those things in your head.
Yeah.
Well done, you've done brilliantly. Thank you for reading.
Okay. So I think you can see from that, although it was a really short book, Mrs. Backer certainly got lots out of it. I think he now understands the word imagination, if nothing else. So at home, we ask you to read with your child at least 3 times a week. I think really it's best to encourage some sort of a routine. If they're able to read every day, that would be amazing. I do understand that there are pressures from all sorts of things at home, but if they don't read every day, it would be good to have some sort of a reading opportunity at home. I can't stress enough the importance of a bedtime story. Even when children can read independently themselves, I would say that my year 6 class, they love it because I read every day to them, and I think that's their favourite bit of the day. You can hear a pin drop in my classroom when they listen to the story. They absolutely love it. Even though they are perfectly capable of reading a story themselves, they still really enjoy that. We ask you to write in the children's reading records. It's unlikely that teachers will write very often in your child's reading record. Please don't be under the misapprehension that that means your child hasn't been heard read. They have been heard read. As I said at the beginning, reading really is the most important thing that we do as primary educators. So we are listening to them read constantly. We might just not write that in a reading record. You can see from what we've talked about that comprehension is so important. It's important for them to help them progress through their star readers, but it is the point of reading. You need to be able to extract something from it. I'm really sorry that I have just talked at you for the entire evening. That's the problem with doing this over Zoom, that it's very difficult to have any kind of to and fro of people. But in a moment, I will open it up to any questions. I'm going to try and run different workshops to do with reading throughout the year. So next time, I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of vocabulary and about helping to develop your child's general knowledge, because if they know stuff, then they actually can apply that in their reading, and it really helps them to develop these comprehension skills.